How can you supercharge your legal practice? While many attorneys are winning battles in the courtroom, they're losing battles in their personal life. They're often overworked, unappreciated, and unhappy. And attorneys are almost 4 times more likely to suffer from depression than people working in other fields. The suicide rate is so alarming, several state bar associations are working on combating the crisis in the industry. And so is Francine Tone, an attorney that's dedicated to helping lawyers live and practice law purposefully. She's the #1 best-selling author of What Every Good Lawyer Wants You to Know. And Francine is on a mission to help lawyers create a practice and lifestyle they love. Let's meet Francine. Hi, Francine. It's great to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right. So you've got a very unique background. You've got over 40 years in the legal business, 20 as sitting as a judge pro tem, 16 years as a leadership trainer, but you're also an elite athlete, certified ski instructor, scuba dive master, and paddleboard racer. So tell us about how being an elite athlete has supported and impacted the work you do as an attorney.
Sure. One of the things that I do when I'm out, whether I'm surfing, paddling, diving, skiing, is that I'm having a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And when I'm doing that, I'm setting goals, going after it with grit. I fail, I succeed, and it makes me feel alive. And when I hear about lawyers who are depressed or feeling suicidal or just anxious, I know they're not doing anything fun anymore. They're not doing anything that's passionate. And in order to be a really good lawyer and connect with your clients, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. And I want to bring all that energy back into their lives.
Mm-hmm. And I know one of the things that has made you so successful as an attorney and opened up a lot of opportunities and enabled you to help a lot of folks is the fact that you are extremely authentic. You're very raw and open about your past. So your childhood was super challenging. Your mother died when you were 1. Your father abandoned you, and then your adopted father molested you. So how did that crazy upbringing influence the way you practice law and the way that you work with other lawyers today?
Right. So by the time I was 6, I didn't have anybody to trust. And I was harboring this kind of dark secret. And that's tough for any kid. But when I was 8, I had a chance, and this kind of sounds a little funny, to watch the Perry Mason show. And everybody trusted Perry Mason. So at 8, I trusted Perry Mason. And I decided I want to grow up like him. If I didn't have anyone to trust, I didn't want other people to feel that way. And I wanted to be the Perry Mason for everyone else. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I did. And when I was younger, I worked in the legal field before I became a lawyer. I did every job that there was to do, and I watched. And I realized it wasn't really like Perry Mason in real life. Yeah. You know, that people had to kind of work and earn that trust. So when I went to law school, I kind of became fixated on the ethics that related to attorney-client relationships. And I became this, like, almost obsessive about the legal ethics and the attorney-client relationships because I had to build ironclad trust. And that's what I set out to do.
Okay, so let's just talk about trust, because you've developed a system that consistently produces predictable results, and you've coached and worked with an enormous number of attorneys in addition to just using it yourself. So when you're working with lawyers, what are some of the things that you address? How do you get them from where they are to getting to a point where not only they are earning and building that trust, but it changes their lives too?
Right. So, what I do is I work with the attorneys, and I get in there and I look at everything that they're doing, and I look for weaknesses in their system. And the way I work with clients is to develop that ironclad trust, and I teach attorneys how to do that. And look at everything they're doing and seeing where are the parts that aren't working as well as they should. And one of the areas, just a really funny story, is my husband is an attorney also. And when my book came out, he was just representing this partner that was breaking up a partnership. and they were getting ready to go to arbitration, and both sides were like heated and angry and always calling each other names, and it was just kind of getting heated, and he was kind of worried that this was going to be a tough arbitration. Well, my book just happened to come out a couple of weeks before arbitration, and he sent a copy of my book to his client and said, read this book. I didn't even know he had done it. And after the client read, he called my husband back and said, I get it. I understand. And we weren't sure what that really meant until they went.
Did it mean?
What did that mean to him?
What was it that shifted and what changed?
Right, and so they went to arbitration, and he sat there almost, my husband says, almost smugly, because the other side was getting upset over things that didn't matter. They were distractions.
Yeah.
And he would just kind of shove my husband to the side and goes, oh, I know what he's doing. I read about that in the book. And my husband realized he didn't have to manage the client's emotions that day. The client did it himself because he understood.
Oh, yeah.
And that was when we saw the magic of the book happen.
Right. And one of the things that I know you're going to be doing, we're going to be giving away the book at the end of this interview. So you also had, you were working with an attorney named Kevin.
Oh, right. And so with Kevin, this is one of the things that I do. Like I said, I go in and look at their systems. And at the beginning of my working with Kevin, I ended up calling to make an appointment, and I kind of got stuck in their automated appointment system. And it was convoluted. And as I was going through it, I realized, boy, if I was a client, I might not call back. I might just hang up the phone. And he could be losing clients that could become champions for him. So we sat down and looked at that system. I love automation. It's great. It really frees up time. But it has to be used properly. And with attorneys and clients, it's about building that relationship. So we went in there and found what the weakness was, fixed it, and he could still use automation, but now we've kind of fixed it so that he's not losing clients.
So it felt human again.
Yes.
Right. So one of the things that you talk about in your book, and you have a way of phrasing this, which is lawyers are trained to communicate, but they aren't trained to communicate. What do you mean by that?
Right. So, with lawyers, we go to law school. We're trained to think like lawyers, and then we learn to argue cases, how to argue an appellate case, trial. We have mock trials and all this. So it's all about analysis.
Told what to say in a specific structure.
Exactly. And our brains are trained to analyze, get to the facts, and it's very systematic and very, not rigid, but very, there's an accomplishment, there's a goal that you have to accomplish, right? And there's a way to get there. Clients are people. They're not a system. And when they come to lawyers, they have a problem, and they need to know they're going to be taken care of. So that emotional IQ, that's not taught in law school. And I teach that to lawyers so they understand what it's like from the client's point of view. I know that because I've been a client.
Right.
So I know what it feels like to be on the other side.
So you bridge that rule set between taking an attorney who's thinking like a machine into thinking like a person, but through the lens of their ideal customers,
Correct.
who they're dealing with, they're their clients all
That's
the time.
right.
All right. So that really comes back to, that's what you do inside your book, is you bridge that gap. So let's talk a little bit about Samantha.
Okay, Samantha, she is a solo practitioner, and she represents people that are often sued by big companies like banks and financial institutions. And so she ends up going to court, and she stands on one side of in the courtroom by herself, and the big company shows up with 3 or 4 lawyers on the other side. And she was having trouble because her clients sitting behind her watching this, and they would start questioning her ability to handle the case. Because to them, it looked like David and Goliath, and oh my gosh, you just can't stand up against these 4 people. So I worked with her and realized she was a really good lawyer. She did her homework, she knew what she was doing, and she just didn't know how to deal with that little problem.
There was a perception issue there.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just gave her a couple of my books, and I said, give them to your clients, the ones that you're having this trouble with, and tell them to go read it. They went and read it because I talk about that precise thing in the book, about the credibility of the lawyer. And the clients read that book, came back and said, oh, wow, I understand. And she didn't have that problem with those clients anymore. And so she was ecstatic.
So basically learn the language of the courtroom inside that. And again, the values, what matters and what doesn't.
Right. It's teaching, it's not just telling clients information, but getting them to understand.
Okay, so what are some of the other ways that your book helps attorneys before we give them a copy?
Well, actually, to me, I think it's like the best marketing tool ever, right? I give these now to all my clients. I make them now read it as a condition of my working with them. And by giving them the book, it really helps you develop champion clients. And champion clients are your ideal clients, and they do all the marketing for you. And that's what I've developed.
Right.
I have clients who I don't market. I don't advertise. I don't do anything because my clients just keep sending referrals. And I've put 30 years of practice, of myself practicing, I've never been shy of work.
That's great. And so talk a little bit about the advanced warning system. Also,
Okay.
you've got a big idea here. What is the advanced warning system?
Okay, so the book is the advanced warning system, right? And it's the idea that by you're kind of preemptively striking the problem before it ever happens. Instead of waiting for a problem to start and then have to explain, and then you sound like you're kind of defensive and making excuses, is this book deals with all the things that good lawyers do tell their clients, but now they have it in writing. They can read it at their leisure. And so when something does come up, the lawyer can just say, remember that book I gave you? And the client goes, oh yeah, that was in there. So now the lawyer isn't making excuses because they foretold what would happen.
Right. Yeah, you're very good at predicting what happens next. So speaking of that, so how can other attorneys either learn more about you, get a copy of your book, work with you directly, or hire you as a keynote speaker then?
Okay, so they can go to my website, which is www.francineTone.com and /free book, and they can get a free copy of my book there. And at that website, there's a way to contact me if they want to have me come in and speak to them for continuing education courses or keynote at an event.
All right, fantastic. All right, well, the next step, super easy for you. Just head on over to www.francinetone.com, get her book, find out how you can work with her, learn more, and hire her as a speaker. Thank you, Francine. It's been awesome having you here.
Thank you so much.
All right, all right.